Hello, everyone. Everyone, welcome to a Lions Den Sports Special. Very pleased to have on Moses Rashid today, founder of so many different companies. Now, I've done a bit of research about the most recent one, the Edit
Yeah,
London. First of all, how you doing first, Moses?
yeah, all good, buddy. It's all systems go on this side with our kind of tackling the US, let's say. So we've got lots of fun, cool stuff to hopefully share with you today. Yeah,
You were telling me that you started, what time you were in the office today and what time do you finish?
yeah. So it's kind of standard practice. So we were with P Diddy's team last night.
Yeah.
And that was until about kind of 11:30, but then up at 5 and in the office by kind of 7:30 to kind of crank out what needs to be done this morning. And then we'll kind of go through till this evening until, tomorrow. That's kind of your standard, very standard week.
How does a typical day look for you when you said you get up at 5 o'clock? What do you
Yeah.
know? What do you normally do at that sort of time?
So between like 5 to 6:30, normally I'm doing a little bit of work, which is clearing all the emails I get through from the US in the evening. Make my way to the gym, and on the way to the gym, I'm normally working. I'll train between 6:30 to 7:30, have my breakfast over at Shoreditch House, then make my way to the office, normally for around 8. And that's me, that. And so I'm always on the front foot. And then obviously from there, kind of typically back-to-back meetings, through till the evening. You normally have this lull around kind of 3 or 4, where I kind of just grab a quick snack, and then boom, you're into the US shift. And of course, a lot of people that I'm speaking to at the moment, whether it be for investment or big brand deals, are based out of either New York, LA, or Miami. You're trying to navigate those time changes. And then, of course, we're doing a lot of stuff out in Saudi Arabia and Qatar specifically. Now they're only 2 hours ahead, so actually it's pretty easy, but they tend to work late. The culture there is actually that shopping malls are open until 11:30 at night. So it's very, very different way of working. So yeah, it's just so my role really, I kind of work across probably 5 or 6 different time zones at any given day. And so just kind of navigating that.
The Saudi market is really interesting at the moment, isn't it? Like, in terms of sport, I don't know if you've noticed much of it, but they're really investing a lot of money in sports at the moment. I don't know if you've noticed that, especially my background in sport and boxing. They've done so many big events there and stuff, and obviously the malls and stuff is something that's massive there as well. So it's a great market for you there, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing, so I know quite a few of the footballers that play for Al Shabab, which is one of the main Premiership teams based out of Riyadh. And obviously they're talking about a lot of investment in sport wildly, and that actually extends as far as esports as well. And then actually, bizarrely, I've got a couple of buddies that I used to, or should I say, a buddy that I used to go to school with back in Exeter, who now works out in Saudi Arabia, working with the likes of Ronaldo's son and people like this. And effectively, what they're doing is building all kind of the young elite players, and then really at a grassroots level, putting the work in now with the idea that obviously they'll go on to become kind of superstars later on in life. But they're certainly putting a lot of focus into how they develop the country, not just in sport, but broadly. And then you speak to anybody based out of Saudi Arabia, they'll tell you about the 2030 vision. It's from 7 years from now, how they're going to change the country. They've got a city they're building called, I think it's Naum, which is basically like everything goes. So the idea is you'll get lots of Westerns, there'll be alcohol, there'll be all this kind of stuff. Just it kind of sounds like pure debauchery, to be honest, but it looks like it will be pretty cool. Yeah,
Amazing, man. Well, I just want to go back right to yourself, Moses. So obviously we'll come on to the Edit London a little bit more, but I want to find out more about your background. Where you grew up, how your family sort of background was. Did they have many entrepreneurs in your family? Were you the first one there?
yeah. So I mean, so Palestinian heritage. Parents moved over to the UK. I don't know, let's say 45 years ago. Down to so my father's Palestinian, mother's from Amman in Jordan. Moved over, like I said, 45 years ago to Exeter, very kind of white middle class town, I guess. and yeah, so but you know they've come from a traditional background of, you know, you study, you get good grades, you get a good job. So that kind of mentality around how you apply yourself, you work hard, and you know, through the education system is kind of how you progress. And instilled, I'd say, rather than say a religion, a set of values: trust, honesty, respect, and loyalty. And we kind of apply that to everything that me, my brothers, and my sister have kind of gone on to do. But actually, you know, my old man, who's probably, I don't know, 70, 72 now, he was very much like, you know, PhD, you know, doctor, you know, went on to become you know, was a university lecturer over at Exeter. But he always had this little thing in him where he used to buy and sell cars, or he just kind of set up a shop or a coffee shop or whatever. It was more kind of lifestyle based businesses, but it was kind of his little thing, I think, just to kind of have a little bit of fun on the side. Mother very much about, again, education. But if you kind of fast forward, you know, there's four of us siblings, obviously myself included. So my oldest brother has kind of gone on to, he's the senior creative director of Google, actually. So everything that's like Google, Google Home, Google Watch, all that stuff, everything goes through my brother out in the States. So he lives out in Santa Barbara, but works in Mountain View. Wes, so he has an accountancy firm, very different. He ended up being a professional rugby player after uni, went to Cardiff Uick, but then was incredibly studious and arguably the smartest out of all of us. And from a kind of, you know, study point of view, and you know, he owns an accountancy firm with maybe kind of 60, 70 people in you know, 4 or 5 territories, including the US. My sister kind of went into kind of health and social care, so very, very different, very well natured, very all about people and feelings, and you know, and all the good stuff. And of course, my background being, you know, kind of built 3 companies before the Edit London, selling one when I was 22 years old, launching another one at 25, based, and that was first foray into kind of London business life. And then, of course, you know, taking us forward to the Edit London, which obviously is the kind of the most premium globally in terms of, you know, sneakers, streetwear, and collectibles. So yeah, it's been an interesting ride, let's say.
But they've taught you the values of education and hard work ethic, sounds like.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, the kind of as you say, the gentleman's handshake between us all was always like, we'll go to college and we'll all go to uni. But it was more about, whilst of course they want you to get good grades, but actually for them it was more about experience. It was more about meeting people of different backgrounds, different cultures, and kind of experiencing I guess experiencing the world through their eyes, but just kind of getting out of your little bubble, which is very much, you know, Exeter. So they were always like, look, go to uni, as long as you can do that, you can go and work in whatever job you want to be, but just give us that. And we're like, okay. So that was kind of the as you say, the gentleman's handshake that we all kind of agreed to as kids.
And how was it? You said that your parents come down from other countries. For yourself, how was it growing up in Exeter with a predominantly a white middle class background?
I mean, look, it was interesting. I was one of 3 non-white people in the city when I was growing up.
City, wow.
In the city, yeah. So there was me, my mate Dave, and a chap called Taz. Dave now lives in London, Taz over in Cardiff. And you know, but it was, I guess it was an interesting one, because actually, obviously, you always have those elements of you know, let's say that, you know, racial tension on occasion, but you know, thankfully, you know, I excelled at sport when I was younger. You know, kind of you know, playing, you know, professional soccer, football. So I spent a lot of time out in the US, rugby as well, and other sports at a high level. So actually, you kind of build the network very quickly, and you know, and again, for a lot of those teams, I ended up being kind of captain, or you know, within a kind of a leadership role. if you like. So I think that was kind of eased, if that makes sense. So yeah.
Sport has an amazing special connection with people. It can bring people together, can't it?
Yeah, I think it's look, I mean, I remember we went out to Africa once. So this is bizarrely, we were in the Gambia, and we were, we kind of did this little project. Me and a buddy, very last minute, we're kind of, supporting on building this school, or building this classroom, shall I say. And the one thing that you had all these, all these amazing kids with huge smiles on their faces, and all you needed to do is just put a football down, and everybody knew what to do. And that's the incredible power of sport. It's just kind of like a universal language. Now, of course, that's not in all sports. If somebody gives you a baseball bat, you're probably going, well, all right. But or American football, you go, right, what are the rules here? But it's that is the beautiful thing about sport, how it can kind of pull communities together. There's a lot of translation between sport, psychology, and then of course business, which is very much where I kind of always use sporting analogies, if you like. Even most recently kind of talking about offense and defense when you're talking about an American football team. And I was talking about my PA being, when you've got the wide receiver running down the wing, on the American football pitch, like she needs to be the blocker, let me get to the end zone, because I get lots and lots of stuff coming into my inbox every day. So it's that kind of thing. It's like a consistent, translation in everything that I've always done. So
Yeah, man, amazing. So, just going forward, you then, after leaving Exeter, you come to the University of Portsmouth.
yeah. I mean,
And I have to say congratulations on being in the Hall of Fame alumni group for the University of Portsmouth. I saw the T-shirt and stuff that you got. I was there at the speakers event, as I said to you previously. It's really great to hear. But how did the University of Portsmouth come around?
yeah, I mean, to be honest, there wasn't any crazy sides to it. What I was, as most 18-year-old, 17, 18-year-old lads trying to pick their university, you kind of go on where you've known somebody that's been there before, how far away from your current city it is, what's the girl to guy ratio, all that kind of stuff. and that's it. And you're just like, yeah, okay, this place looks great. Obviously I applied for 6 universities. I only got accepted into 3, of which Portsmouth was one of those. And out of the 3 that I got accepted to, which I think were Bristol, Worcester, and Portsmouth, Bristol was a little bit too close. Worcester, I mean, didn't sound particularly exciting, and then Portsmouth seemed like the kind of natural choice.
Yeah, man. And during that time, you were in the first team football. Looking at you play for the first, which is pretty high standards.
So I think I say that's probably the non-professional answer I just gave. The professional answer is it had a great sports program, and that's why I went there. When we're talking about so we had probably, I don't know, 650, 700 people that trialed for the first team in my first year, and I was one of the 3 freshers that I picked to be in the first team in the first year. So, but I'd come off the back of playing for the likes of Exeter City, which back in the day, and bloody hell, I'm 38 now, so that's when we had the old 3rd division. If I mean, a lot of the young bucks that watch or listen to this won't even know what that is, but it's before the EPL and everything else that you know. So yeah, played at a pretty high standard, and then obviously went to university, and then continued playing. Was captain there and so forth. And then when I left, ended up playing for a few of the local clubs around Portsmouth, so Chichester. So I was playing semi-professional there. Played over at Horndean as well. In the time that I kind of stayed in Portsmouth just after uni. But even when I was still at university, we used to play. Obviously, used to have Wednesdays and playing the uni league and have all the fun as you would do on a Wednesday night. But yeah, that we play in the local leagues on a Saturday. which is a mixed, and that was interesting.
Full on
I think
2 foot tackles, right?
probably one of the most interesting ones was having to go and play in the local Portsmouth prison, which was like, can you imagine going in there and just dumping your pants before you go in there? And then you've got a whole load of people who, let's say kind of hate your guts before you've even turned up, and if you decide to be a little bit tricky and pull out a few little skills, then on your head be it, so to speak. So it was quite an interesting, quite an interesting time. Yeah, it was good fun. It's character building, let's say. Yeah.
100%. And while you're at university, you started your first business, right? The events business.
Yeah, so that actually came just after. So I was still in, yeah, it was just still in Portsmouth, and again, had a fairly big presence there, I guess. And I was kind of approached by somebody who's quite known in the space. Sorry, I was sorry, an email came through. Quite known in the space, and basically just kind of approached and said, "Hey, look, would you want to be the face of a couple of our club nights here in Portsmouth?" And the honest answer is I wasn't 100% sure what I was going to do after uni. I was still kind of figuring it out. I did a sports development degree, and I was like, okay, well, what shall I do? And I had this offer. A lot of my mates had failed their 30 years at uni. Loved living with the lads. So I was like, well, how? So I just thought, okay, well, I get to hang out with my buddies. I get to be in this big social scene and meet lots of cool people. Why not? And then after probably 2 to 3 months, kind of realised actually how much cash I'd make this chap, and it was about probably £500,000. And so I thought, well, let's see if I can do it, because actually a lot of the people are here more so because I've kind of built this brand for them. So I thought, let's go and do it. So very much kind of phoned a couple of clubs and managed to get these accounts on, pretending I was a big shop promoter and all this kind of stuff, as you do when you're 21. And then managed to get these accounts on. So obviously, I had to go and get some cash from the bank to tell them I had to get money for a car and start putting some money in. Now the deal strictly that I would do is each venue would, let's say, have capacity for about 1,000 people through the door, which is actually a fairly sizable venue. But when you think of it on those terms, if you can hit capacity, you should be able to achieve anywhere between 1 to 1,500 people through the door in any given night. So each person would pay £5 on the door, which we would keep. And then, of course, the bar would take the bar spend. So they go, okay, we'll give you a night that isn't typically busy. You're going to bring loads and loads of people. You're going to spend a load of cash on, loads of money at the bar. They would give us drinks deals. This is when you could get away with doing drinks deals for like £2 for a vodka Red Bull or whatever it was back in the day. Don't know if the government allows that now. I don't know if that's what. There's a different time back in my day. And then, and then we built it up. So if you can imagine, we were kind of hitting capacity. We built that up from 2 nights to 5 a week, across 2 different cities. So if you can imagine the numbers we were doing, pretty strong. And then decided I was a bit bored and wasn't going to be a kind of a club guy. 10 years on, and I'm always thinking like ahead. So kind of made the call at that point. I thought, okay, well, let's try corporate hospitality, and started approaching the likes of IBM and Samsung. And with that, kind of managed, phoned up Samsung, got a corporate hospitality agreement with IBM. Phoned up IBM, got a corporate hospitality agreement with Samsung. Obviously, complete nonsense. And then through a host of meetings, managed to kind of get them both to agree to let me kind of run their corporate hospitality bits. But in doing so, I kind of took all the, I basically said, I'll pay for everything. You guys don't pay a penny, but if you like what we do, what we achieve, you got to pay me the next day. So I took, a 6-figure sum, probably about, I don't know, I always forget, but let's say it was about 120 to 150K, and basically had in pound, what do you call it? Pound notes. So in notes in my bedroom, and I just went, okay, and I just literally, it's kind of, as you say, you put it all on black, so to speak. So I put it all down, turned a profit of £1,750, and then sold it a year later. And so that was kind of my first thing. I didn't really have any clue what I was doing, but it kind of all made sense at the time, and at no point did I ever think it wouldn't work. Genuinely, it didn't ever cross my mind. But actually, on reflections, like I'd employed 40 odd people, and I had to obviously pay them. I had lots of suppliers and all this stuff. And so yeah, and then from there, I chilled for a little bit, trying to again figure out the next move, and I was getting a lot of approaches. I don't know how, but somehow started building a bit of a network in London, and had a lot of people kind of saying, "Hey, come to London," and ended up working for, it was a recruitment firm within digital advertising, or within the media and advertising space, and it ended up working for a firm for, it was 2 years, between end of 2006, beginning of 2007 to kind of 2009. It's about 2 years, and that was working with big brands like big kind of glossy magazines that you'll be familiar with. So Grazia, Till Your Men's Health, and all this kind of stuff, right? Channel 4, ITV. And so I remember the managing director at the time, he kind of gave me a very quick offer, which is great. I started the job like a week later, and he asked me the question. He said, "Look," this was before I even picked up a phone, right? He said, "What do you want in my business, and what are you going to achieve in the next 5 years?" All that kind of corporate stuff you normally hear, and as you say, as bullshit as I was back then, I just kind of said, "Well, look, mate, in 5 years, I'll run your company or I'll run my own." Before I'd even picked up the phone, before I'd even understood if I was any good at doing this job. And then in the height of the very first kind of, or the last recession, if you like, so this is 2009, I left and set up my agency. So that was after 2 years. So I was age 25. In fact, I just turned 25. So and it was kind of, it was really interesting. It was really interesting. It was like, I remember the very first, I handed in my notice, I think it was like September the 17th. Now on the September the 19th, I went to go and play football, injured my knee, and damaged my ACL, right? So I get to the Monday and I'm on crutches, but I'm thinking, oh my God, I've just left my company to set up this business. Is this a sign? And I remember, I remember so vividly, I remember getting to London Bridge Station. So Borough Station, yeah. London Bridge Station. I was standing there on my crutches. September, it was still a bit cold, but I was wearing shorts. My knee was like a balloon, and it just started raining. And I thought, this is telling me everything I need to know. And I kind of hobbled my way for about 30 minutes to my buddy's office, who said I could work there for the day, and just started cold calling. And then, within a 3-month period, there were a few things in there where, started working with the likes of Time Out. We used to have this New Media Age, which is a magazine that went out to all the media and advertising professionals. My buddy used to work there, and whenever they couldn't sell the ad space, he used to give it to me for really cheap. I'm talking like 300 quid, 400 quid type stuff. And so I'd like, yeah, every single time I'll take the half page, I'll take it. And off the back of this, I had, don't know if you remember Orange, the phone network.
Yeah, EE now, isn't it? EE.
Yeah, so they used to have this big advertising unit, and it got connected to them, so I started working with them. Transpired, like, didn't even realize I used to play football with a bunch of guys that worked for Time Out, if you remember Time Out. So started working with those guys, and then off the back of one of my adverts, the CEO of a company called MNC Saatchi, which is a big global advertising firm. They've just set up a mobile division. He'd heard of me and then saw this ad, phoned my mobile, and he was like, "You've just set up in a recession." I'm like, "Yeah." And he thought he totally respected it, and he was quite keen to back the little guy. And I thought, okay, it's really interesting. And then we picked up so much momentum in just the first 3 months. And actually, we sent out our very first invoice on the 1st of October 2009. It's like £2,750. That was our first official trading day. So I'd kind of done all that work. First official training day, I was like, oh my God, I've got a business. And then after 3 months, we picked up so much steam and produced so many results that I had to make my first employee. So after just 3 months in this recession, I'm thinking, bloody hell. So when I got an office and started building it from there, and you know, what we're probably, I don't know, 13, 14 years later, I still own that company. Exactly. And whilst I have very little involvement, I've got a great team there. You know, Tina and Highton and Ella that kind of run that. You know, it's still a bit of a, you know, it's still kind of my baby, if that makes sense.
You sound like a man who's taken risks during riskful times, if that makes sense. You know, it's paid off for you for one way or another. It's worked out for you.
Yeah, I think it's you know, look, you know, even if I fast forward to Edit London, that was launched 3 months before COVID. But obviously in that COVID period, there are moments where I'm thinking, is this even a business? I'm putting in more and more of my own money, you know, and I'm trying to kind of keep this other company afloat because of course it's COVID and work, you know, work's dried up and all the rest of it. And you consistently have those moments and think no matter, you know, there's always peaks and troughs, right? I think part one. Part two is, you know, I always get asked the question, you know, oh, what happens when you have those challenging times? And you know, the reality is it happens, right? And the reality is kind of like peaks and troughs. I sometimes say it's kind of champagnes and razor blades, so to speak. It's like, but it's the, you know, the real successful people or businesses are the ones that actually in those times are willing to double down, you know, kind of go, all right, well, look, I've got clarity on the direction of travel, and actually we're going to go all in rather than this kind of like, you know, half-assed approach to kind of getting it done. Oh, I'm going to do it, but I'll have this safety net over here. It's like, right, let's go for it. So, you know, so as a business evolves, you know, you're talking, let's fast forward to like, you know, the Edit London, and we're most premium globally after just 3 years and partnered with Chicago Bulls and all that kind of stuff. You still take the same risks. It's just on a whole other level of, you know, you start talking about millions instead of, you know, thousands, and you know, it's a different level of risk. But you're kind of taking those exact same risks and going through those same thought processes and going through those same challenges and those same emotional bits every single time. It's just amplified on a much bigger scale. So
I'm going to come on to the Edit London, but I just wanted to touch base on something that I feel across when I speak to you now, is that self-belief in your ability, that you feel like no matter what challenges you face, as long as you have that belief in yourself and you have a vision that you want to achieve, you can go and achieve whatever you want to achieve. I think it comes down from sport as well, from your background in sport. From my personal experience, I think a lot of it comes down to sport.
Yeah. I think it, you know, probably too headstrong at times, but you know, you got to kind of, you know, if you've made a conscious decision to go after something in sport, if you've got made a conscious decision to be Erling Haaland, I don't know, or whoever it might be, you kind of, you know, you've got to own it. You know what I mean? So and you've got to believe it. And, you know, if you can and you can assert confidence and so forth, then others will start to kind of follow suit. You know, and so I think certainly in business, it's absolutely, you know, when you're in a leadership role such as, you know, myself, it's all about how you inspire confidence. How do you get a team of people? You know, we've got, I don't know, 60, 65 here or whatever. You know, how do you get all of these people kind of believing the same vision and mission, and kind of gearing towards the same thing at the pace that you need them to do it, you know, knowing that they're probably challenged, swamped, overworked, you know, all those kind of things. You're keeping the motivation high, to drive the kind of mutual goal. So it's it's kind of a mixture of things, but yeah, sport's a good foundation for that.
I want to move on to the Edit London. That's your most recent project. It's a crazy project. I've spoken to a few people about it. Loads of people have heard of the brand name. So you know, it is growing out there massively. You're now expanded, you know, worldwide. You've got your shoes out in different countries. You said you started it in March 2020, or just 3 months before COVID, wasn't it?
So it was January 2020. So very much in my bedroom for the first year type gig. You know, and kind of the origin story was very much that, you know, I was kind of at a sneaker festival buying some kicks for £600-700. You know, and asked this guy, do you have a plastic bag for me? You know, and he responded saying no, and it just blew my mind. I was paying a premium, but not getting the premium service. So when I started looking out in market, and of course, you know, StockX and Goat, whom I've bought from before, for me, there was nothing that really screamed premium, you know. So, you know, and so when I walked away, I thought, well, let's build it. And, you know, largely it was about how can I get the coolest product quicker than everybody else to service my own need? Because, you know, if you ever come to my, you know, house in London, you'll just see, you know, 300 of the coolest, you know, sneakers. You'll see Louis Vuitton varsity jackets and all this kind of thing. And it's just because I've always had a keen interest in wearing this product myself, right? And so, yeah, and so then as we kind of grew the business, you know, year one was very much, you know, built in my, you know, bedroom, and we had a few kind of pivotal moments in that kind of first year that allowed us to start growing a brand name. Year two, you know, so I took you know, somehow managed to convince you know, some investors to kind of put in 250,000 at the end of that first year, based on kind of a 2020 about roughly kind of 20% growth month to month. And then we grew 525% in a year. And then a lot of people were like, wow, okay. So year two, we were kind of, I'd say year one, we were a startup. Year two, we were kind of considered the up and comer, the one to watch. End of year one, end of year two, you know, you know, at this point, we had been featured in, you know, Forbes, The Times, GQ, Hypebeast. We'd entered into Harrods October 21. And then I kind of went out to market again, you know, with the idea that we were going to, you know, grow the business another 500-600%, which we did. So when we finished the end of year three, you know, we kind of widely now considered the most premium globally. So if you even fast forward, you know, and of course we ended that year with a global partnership with the Chicago Bulls, celebrity investors, which include the likes of Jesse Lingard, PJ Tucker, Lala Anthony, Xavier McKinney of the New York Giants. We've just had Ollie Watkins, Aston Villa striker. We've got a couple of others, including, you know, quite a couple of big, large US global rappers that you'll be familiar with, you know, coming into the business. And loads of other cool stuff, I'm sure I can tell you. And of course, we're now in 4 different countries, with number 5 on the horizon for later on this year. So it's been a bit of a wild ride in a very short space of time. But that's the fun stuff.
What do you reckon the key is to grow your business that fast? What was it that made you different? I know you said about making it more premium, but it must be something more than just that made it stand out, because you've got so many resellers out there now, haven't you?
Yeah, I think specifically, like, a question that I'll, particularly when you're raising funds, you know, an investor will say, you know, why are you different? And for me, it was really clear. It was product curation. So for me, that was about how can you get the hottest drops before anyone else. So now I think when we were talking before, I kind of gave the analogy of like the Tiffany Air Force One, so 1,837 pairs of them released. You know, we had about 30 odd pairs in our headquarters 5 weeks before they release. Now, of course, we then sold them off to celebrities and high net worths who were paying, but for us to release them, they had to tag us on their socials, you know, which meant, you know, people like Ludacris and people like that coming into our DMs because they heard we had them in hand and can send them before official release, right? So part one was about product curation, about how we do that. It's just more so around the resellers that we actually work with. Part two then was around speed. But, you know, I'm 100%, I never understood when you bought from StockX or Go how it would take 3 or 4 or 5 weeks to arrive. Now, of course, there's always going to be anomalies, and sometimes a reseller doesn't send a shoe or whatever, and sometimes there's a length of time. But when that becomes the standard, it makes no sense. And so, day one, it was like, okay, we'll do it in 1 to 7 working days. But actually, about 5-6 months ago, we built a same-day service that actually launches, runs in London, the M25. So, of course, on a selected product file. But again, that was born out of me. 100%, I'd pay $100 more to get that product today. I've always been like that. It's like, give it to me now, and I'll pay more for it. And then the third part was all about experience. So it's like, well, what's the level of service you get with these platforms? Non-existent in our competitors. So I thought, right, okay, well, on a scalable point of view, that meant 30-minute response times on emails, 1 to 3 minutes on Instagram, or chatbot, of course, is instant. But if you're a high net worth or a repeat spender, then you get to work with our private shopping team, who will give you outfit builds, access to pre products. They'll give you when the coolest product comes here to HQ before it even gets loaded on the site, then you'll be notified by them, and so forth and so forth. So there was this huge kind of service element. And then the final part about like how we grew it so quickly was more about this kind of huge dollop of kind of culture and community. So part one was like, actually we give a shit, so to speak. And part two was about how we kind of bring how we bring our customers on the journey with us. So the giving a shit part might be, we became the first global marketplace to donate sustainably with every single sale. So we've actually taken, I think it's about 650 to 700,000 kilos of plastic out of the ocean since we launched the initiative. Part two of that kind of sustainable agenda, if you like, is, pre-loved, and how we're now building and tackling that. But then it might be the cool stuff, which is, flying drones in Harrods, bringing, some of the hottest products to the likes of Harrods. So we've got like a 1984 airship or a 1985 Chicago. Or this campaign we're doing with NBA 2K, which will launch later on in the year, which will be the backdrop of a sneaker festival with, a 2-on-2 basketball with YouTubers, TikTokers, celebrities, and so forth. And all this other cool stuff that's happening. So
Moses, I know we're short for time. I had a couple more questions, but I'll ask you just one last one, just because
Sure.
it's time conscious. You've mentioned about what you're achieving at the moment. I've read somewhere previously that you want to make this into $1 billion industry. Make this the Amazon of sneakers, right?
Yeah, that was the headline in the Times, I think. Yeah,
and it worked. It worked. It brought headlines, which is what it's all about, right? So, hearing from yourself, what is the goal for the London?
exactly. So I'm absolutely on public record. We'll hit. Well, by the time we hit 2026, we'll be doing what we refer to as a partial exit to private equity. We'd assume that would be around 200 million quid. At that point, huge injection of cash will then take it to $1 billion within 3 years from there. So that's 2029.
Amazing, man. Amazing.
But I say all of that, and that's obviously the financial, the fun stuff. But actually, the key part of this business, and kind of the purpose, why do we get out of bed in the morning type stuff, is actually driven by purpose. So we will be the company that changes the sneaker market. So that'll be, everything from kind of trend setting to how people actually consume the product in a way that actually takes typically an inaccessible product and makes it accessible and easy, in this kind of trustworthy space. So really, for us, it's about how do we kind of really flip the script, and that's kind of the exciting stuff.
Cool. One last question, really quickly. How did you get 39 of the Tiffany shoes, man? How did they come about to you before they even launched? That's crazy. I know my little brother was trying to get a pair of those on the Nike, was it Nike website or something?
Yeah, I mean, that's very, very rarely. I mean, you've got to have, you've got to have a very big stroke of luck to kind of win one of those raffles. And of course, they do happen, but on a drop like that, very, very challenging. But yeah, I can't give away all of my secrets, but let's say it was the same. To be honest, it was the same with, like, I'm wearing the Louis Vuitton Air Force One at the moment. We had like 60 pairs of these 3 months before release. Because you have what you call like friends and family pairs, and you get all early. Almost every shoe that releases will always have early pairs, like a kind of release to people. And so if you're kind of looped in, circled in with the right people, then we can get that product exclusively. We've got the clients that will buy it. It's kind of, you know, it kind of comes full circle. So
you can tell me off air how you got those and whether we can do something.
That's it.
Moses, thank you very much for your time, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, all the best. And guys, look out for the podcast. Be out soon. Thank you.
Cheers for having me. Take care. Thank you.